The Service, written by Shagri Gona. Anne's whole world is turned upside down when she uncovers the true meaning behind existing. Nothing is as it seems with the service pulling all the strings. Anne may not be as special as she thought. Chapter 1. A Grey World. Rain fell on the pavement, slowly washing away the layer of dust on cars that had been left outside overnight, clearing the stuffy air to replace it with air so wet you could collect water by just waving your hand. The rain slowly began to pick up. Anne walked up the road towards a gray and gloomy building, surrounded by other gray and gloomy buildings. One single building was identical and indistinguishable to at least 6 others on the block. Anne walked peacefully to Building 87, where Rob was standing with a group of other students. As Anne walked up to the group, they impatiently disappeared inside the building. Rob flashed an exhausted expression at Anne. He had clearly been waiting for some time. "I told you that I wasn't going to be late."
The exam's in 8 minutes and we still have to check in.
"Like I said, not late. We still have time. Come on." As Anne walked up the stairs, Rob held the door open for her, and they walked into a lobby together to find lines of anxious students waiting for them. A few students glanced at Anne and gave her an almost dismissive look.
"I'll see you after the test."
"Maybe I have to find Jazz and figure out why she isn't here today."
"I can meet you at the cafeteria in Building 31.
"I'm just really worried. I don't want to waste too much time."
"Well, I'll wait for you, if you finish early."
"Do as you wish." Anne walked up to the check-in table to provide an ID, where an operator scanned her arm and a green light revealed a purple code for a brief second. The administrator checked the screen of the scanner and compared it to the ID, while another operator provided a package and informed Anne to proceed through door 2. Anne walked through the doors labeled 2, following a long hallway lit up by organic LEDs on the walls. After another set of large doors, Anne entered into a large conference room, which had large glass windows. Yet there was no natural light. The desks all had lamps above them, as the clouds almost always blocked out the sun. Anne walked past endless rows of students, all in the same gray jumpsuit within arm's reach of one another. She sat in the designated area where her name was written, Anne Francis. Before she began the test, Anne looked back to see if Jazz was anywhere. Instead, she saw an empty desk, presumably where Jazz was meant to sit. This made Anne a little uneasy, but she had to focus and prepare herself for the quickly approaching exam. The test began and silence fell upon the room. Every single student had their exam goggles flash to signal the beginning of the test. The orange lenses helped illuminate the room as hundreds of students began to solve complex problems in a virtual environment. The eyewear also blocked all forms of technology and other innovative cheating methods from being accessed during the exam, as they were carefully monitored by human and AI systems. After about half an hour, students were allowed to go to the bathroom. Anne quietly stood up, took off her glasses, and signed out to use the bathroom. In a daze, she entered the stall and unrolled a toilet seat protector. As she was about to sit down, she heard a very low whisper. Anne! Eep! Anne! Who are you? Can I help you with something? Look up. Anne looked up to see that one of the tiles on the ceiling was missing, and instead, long black hair dangled in its place. Jazz! Shh! We don't have much time. Come on now. I have to return to finish the exam. There's no time. You have to come with me. They'll notice. That's fine. But listen, something really off is happening and you need to know. Anne paused and thoroughly thought about what she should do next. Please tell me what's going on. Why aren't you taking your exam? If you really want to find out, come with me. Or you could stay, but make your decision soon. But this is the final, where the top students get to choose their continent, and maybe even their occupation. This might be my only chance to fly. Remember the pact you and I made when we were kids? A ringing sound came from the ceiling as Jazz gestured to Anne with a finger at the mouth. Shh, I hear you. Just a quick second, let me answer this first. As Jazz maneuvered to tap her temple, her left eye illuminated in a flashing green light. This surprised Anne, as only teachers had iPhones. Oreo, standing by. On the way. Right. Over and out. What's going on? And what is Oreo? Jazz shrugged her shoulders and looked right into Anne's eyes as the light of the phone disappeared from her eye. Hurry! Come with me now! There's no time to waste! Anne stared blankly at Jazz. I gotta go. Meet me at building 432 tomorrow at 6. It's in the maintenance district. You will have to follow the path. You won't find it on your GPS or any school map. Here, take this. Keep it and yourself safe. But that's when the assembly is. It's completely up to you. But I miss you, and I want you to choose. Just know, we are the system. I really have to go now, I'm sorry. Please remember, they're monitoring almost everything, and that I love you. Jazz's black hair vanished from the ceiling, and the ceiling tile was put back in its place. Anne left the stall, shaken and confused. She couldn't bring herself to use the bathroom. She took a few deep breaths and braced herself to go finish her exam. She hurriedly walked back into the exam room. She sat down, put back on her glasses, and started to fill out the exam hologram projected on her desk. After a few hours, Anne finished her exam. Others were still busy writing. A wave of relief washed over her. She sat in her seat for a moment before getting up. Just as she gripped the sides of her desk, pushing herself up, she realized that she had to make a choice. Anne was in reach of everything she ever wanted, and yet she felt uneasy, almost anxious about her interaction with Jazz. So she decided to sit for a little longer while she collected her thoughts, slumping back down in her seat. Not realizing that the allotted time for the exam had come to a close, Anne remained lost in a trance, sitting, trying to figure out what she should do. Just then, the exam coordinator loudly shouted,
Time's up! Please hand in all your materials.
Anne was suddenly jolted awake and brought back into reality. Anne wondered why all of this was happening now. Jazz had come so far in the last few years. Her strange behavior was puzzling. Climbing in the ceiling? Speaking in code? Anne couldn't put the puzzle pieces together. For a brief second, Anne broke thought as she walked past another exam that was just finishing up. This class was full of athletic bodies and symmetrical faces, most of which were girls. Everyone in that class was just perfect. Their uniforms were more high-tech and had personal designs and patterns. Some even had color. She found it strange that there was never a student from these classes that studied with students like her in the general population. Anyone with a different jumpsuit studied, ate, and even exercised somewhere else. The general population would hardly see these students, as they liked to stay with people like them. Anne was so intrigued by these students, and wondered what it took to become like them. What kind of program were these students in, and where would their placements be? Anne calmed herself down as she realized that there was no way she'd be competing against them, as they were never ranked in the yearly standings. As soon as the students were out of sight, she snapped back into the reality of her situation. Jazz had been the most well-rounded student and human that she knew. She was also a very rational person who always made the right decision. However, it seemed in the last couple of weeks, Jazz had been very distant and barely around. Anne had just assumed that Jazz was studying for her exams, like everyone else. She walked slowly back to her dorm building in the provincial district. She could have taken the stacked hover carpets that littered the street corners, but she wanted to try and understand what happened during the exam while walking home. Anne's walk was long and tiring. When she finally arrived at her building, she looked up at her apartment on the 8th floor. Her room was the only one without a light on. Still in a haze, Anne wondered how she was so late, and how long she had spent looking at the other class. Anne was also not any closer to deciding on what she should do about the information that Jazz shared with her in the bathroom. Thank you for listening to The Service, written and dictated by Shagri Gona. The next chapter will be released soon. And don't forget, The Service always provides perfect smiles.